video is sponsored by Squarespace. How's it going, guys? Vincent here from the creativedojo.net. Welcome to another video tutorial. Today in this video, we're talking about something called the Essential Graphics panel. Now, this isn't a new feature in Adobe After Effects Premiere, but it's a relatively new addition to the feature set of these programs as of the Spring CC 2017 update. So this includes After Effects version 2017.2, which I believe is version 14.2, as well as version 14.1 for Premiere. The versioning is kind of weird, but as of the 2017 spring update, you should have these essential graphics new features for After Effects Premiere. And although it isn't new, this is actually a relatively new thing for me because I've always been using kind of the older versions of After Effects because the new ones are kind of always buggy and have issues and stuff like that. So, but I tried this new feature out recently on a new project and it kind of blew me away. So I kind of want to share it with you guys in this video tutorial here. So basically, it allows you to pretty much edit and modify After Effects projects, motion graphic designs in Premiere. And you can actually create these motion graphics templates within Premiere itself, but I just find that kind of not intuitive for a lot of things, for what kind of work that I kind of do. But basically, you can create these motion graphics templates in After Effects, these complex templates, and you can actually modify a lot of the parameters within Premiere itself directly without having to re-render the project. So it's kind of like dynamic link, but one level deeper for a lot of things. So for an example, I created this kind of simple lower third right here in After Effects. Now, if you wanted to edit this, you would go back to After Effects, edit it and bring it back in, or re-render it and bring that video back in. But here, as you can see, I have the Essential Graphics panel right here, and I can actually change the text itself. So directly in Premiere. So directed by John Smith, we can go by Vincent Wynn, and that will update live very quickly without any issues. I also have some, position controls here. I can control the X and Y. I can control the number of padding, stuff like that. So, you can do a lot more depending on what you want to do. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on the essential graphics in After Effects, but mind you, you can actually stay completely within Premiere and create these motion graphics templates within Premiere and export it as an essential graphics module in Premiere. And there are some benefits which I'll go through in the video later towards the end. But I'm going to focus on After Effects and how to create more complex stuff in After Effects and use that and customize that within Premiere. So let's go into After Effects here. So as you can see, I have the original project file here. I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch, create a new composition. And this is a pretty important part here. So I'm going to call this lower thirds. And so you want to actually make the composition size relatively large, similar to the size of your footage that you're going to be using. So in this case, nowadays, I would recommend making a 4K motion graphics template just because a lot of footage nowadays are 4K at least. You can always scale it down if it's smaller, so on and so forth. But, it's pretty important to make it as large as possible. I'm going to make it 1080p in this case for demo purposes, 24 FPS, 5 seconds long, hit OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring in my stock footage, courtesy of Derek Midler. This is one of his stock footage videos from Vimeo here. So I'm just going to take this and kind of use it as a background to kind of gauge myself on the template of my lower thirds. And so I'm going to create a lower thirds in this case. You can create pretty much whatever you want, intros, transitions, you can pretty much create whatever you want and bring it into Premiere. But in this case, a good example would be to create a lower third to show you kind of the features of the Essential Graphics panel here. I'll also be using an expression called source rec at time, which is a relatively new expression as of CC. I believe the original After Effects CC version. I don't know which version that is, 12. But this is a pretty cool expression that I think you'll find very useful. Anyways, I'm going to create our first text layer here. I'm going to call this, I don't know, directed by John Appleseed. And, we'll go ahead and, keep at this font, make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of just position it to the general location of where I want it to be. And so by putting it down here and not at the center, I kind of created a complicated scenario for myself in terms of making reactive rectangles for the lower thirds. But it's a very good learning experience in this case. I'll try to speed through it here. So now that I created my text, I'm going to go ahead and create a new shape layer. And we're going to make this shape layer responsive to our text box here. So resize according to the text length and size. in Premiere, in the I believe 2018, the version CC 2018, there's a really cool feature that will allow you to create responsive rectangle box shapes in Premiere without any expressions. It's very, very fast and easy. You can anchor things down. So that's one benefit of using Premiere if you don't want to set this up using expressions. So that's, just keep that in mind. Anyways, I'll create a shape layer here. I'll go ahead and add a fill, and I'll also add a rectangle. And I'll move the rectangle up, and then so it's gonna be a rectangle, and then it's gonna fill. And then I'm gonna go ahead and call this title BG, and I'll call this title, and I'll bring the title BG behind the title. And so first of all, let's go ahead. So as you can see, the size is a square right now. We want the size to match the size of this text here. And so we can do that by going to the title background, go into the rectangle path here, just hit UU to show all the properties, contents, rectangle paths. And under size here, we're gonna hold down Alt or Option to create an expression. And in this case, we're gonna create a few simple lines of expression here. So I'm gonna type in layer equals, and we'll go ahead and pick whip our text here. So we're creating a variable, and then we're gonna type in the X size, it's gonna equal the layer source rect at time, and then type in width, and Y equals layer source rect at time height. And basically the source rect at time pretty much gets the kind of the box outline of the layer at the current time. So this text layer right here has a kind of like a control outline rectangle. And with this expression, we can actually access that rectangle around our text and get the width and height of it. And so now that we have these variables, this rectangle should be bracket X, comma Y. So it's going to be like, okay, so now that you have these properties, make the width and height X and Y, which is this and that. And so as you can see, it's taking the width and the height of the text layer control right here. This little rectangle right here is going to take that size and apply that size to our shape layer here. Now we're going to modify this soon. Anyways, I'm going to create a new control layer to add some properties to this. I'm going to call this controls. I'm going to go ahead and add a few controls here, expression controls. We're going to do a slider control. We'll call this X position, duplicate that, call this Y position. We're going to duplicate that and create a padding amount. And finally, we're going to go ahead and create another expression control called a color control. And we'll call this BG color. And let's go ahead and do some simple parenting here. So I'll just hit UU to show all the properties of the slider control here. And we'll go and so I'm going to go ahead and modify this real quick. I'm going to go ahead and instead of just X and Y to make the exact size of the text, I'm going to go ahead and add some padding. So we're going to do padding equals, and we'll pick whip to our padding slider amount, close a semicolon. And under the coordinates, we'll do, instead of X and Y, we do X and Y, or X plus padding, and then Y plus padding. So it's going to expand it a little bit. And so if we increase the padding amount, you're going to see that it increases the size, okay? And then for the color, that's pretty easy. We'll go to the fill, and we'll Alt or Option click the color and pick up that to the color of the background color. And so now when we change the controls to maybe like a white, it's white, or black, it's black. I'm gonna keep it at black for now. So now everything works, relatively well here. The only issue is basically this rectangle is up here and not over here. We can just move it, but then, if we change the size, the anchor point, all it's gonna be messed up basically, and things aren't gonna be aligned. So to get this to align to our text, we need to go into the transform properties and play around with the anchor point here. So basically, as you can see for the text, the anchor point is left aligned because I want it that way. So when we type stuff, it's going to expand to the right. And so I want to mimic that. And so you could manually move it, but once you expand this, this is not going to work. The anchor point is not going to be anchored to the edge of the rectangle because the rectangle size is being controlled by expressions. So we need to force the anchor point to stay at the left no matter what. And so we can go to the anchor point here. We can do source rect at time. So get its source rect at time. Instead of width, we'll do left. So get the left point. And actually, we'll just call this, X. And for Y, we'll type in source rect at time dot height divided by 2. And then finally, XY in brackets. So as you can see, just by doing that, now our anchor point is at the bottom left of our rectangle here, which is perfect, which is what we want. But so now we got to position it. So we'll actually link the position of the background shape to the title position. And so now everything should line up properly so that if I change the title to directed by Steve, as you can see, the black background expands properly. And so now I believe if you add the padding, it should screw everything up because the anchor point's always going to be directed to the left here. So if I increase the padding, you can see since the anchor point is always right here, you get some weird alignment issues. And we can fix that by going into the anchor point here and just offsetting it based on the padding amount. So we'll call this padding. And that padding is going to obviously equal the padding amount slider on the control. So instead of XY, we'll do X, and we'll do, I believe, plus padding divided by 2. So that will kind of adjust things to the left and have it so that we have equal space on each side. And then for the Y position, we will do minus padding divided by 2. So just like that, if we increase or decrease the padding amount, everything should line up equally. And if we go ahead and change the size of the text, it should, update accordingly. As you can see, it does. And the last thing we need to do is we need to set up the controls for the X and Y. So the Essential Graphics panel doesn't accept all properties. So you just can't add every single property to the Essential Graphics. One thing that the Essential Graphics can't do is take in 2D array properties. So position is a X, Y, or a 2D array, or no, sorry, not 2D array, a 2-item array. And so it can't take that. So basically we need to break this into individual sliders here. And that's just one of the limitations of the Essential Graphics panel as of right now, March 30th, 2018. And so basically we need to write an expression here. So for the actual text layer, we just want to parent it to control X and Y sliders here. And so we'll do set an expression for X is going to equal, this X position slider. Y is going to equal this Y position slider. And the position of the text should be X, Y in brackets. And so now we can control the lower thirds using our slider. It is an absolute position, but you can adjust that if you want. But basically now we have all the controls in our control null here. We can change the color to white. We can change the padding amount. We can, change the X and Y position. You can even add a control for the text color, which we can do here by, let's see, just adding maybe a generate fill effect maybe. And, we'll go ahead and duplicate this. And let's see here. We'll call this font color. One thing you can't do is actually bring in font or the thickness, boldness, whatever, tracking, kerning. I don't think you can bring in the color either directly like this. So a hack is to add a generate fill effect and attach that to a background or a expression control slider here. So go back to the title. We'll alter option click on the color and we'll link that to the font color of the control slider. And so now we can control the fill using our controller null here. So basically there are a lot of properties that you can't necessarily add. So you kind of need to find a hack and parent that to expression controls. And then you can bring the expression controls into the essential graphics. And this will make more sense once I begin doing that, which we'll do right now. So now that everything's set up here and this is good, this is what I want, let's go ahead and set up a basic animation. And so for the shape, we'll go and add a transition. We'll add a linear wipe. And we'll set it to -90 degrees. And, we'll start at 0%. We'll move maybe like, I don't know, 2 seconds. And we'll set it to, actually, we'll set it to 100 first. And we'll set it to, animate it on. We'll go to animation, keyframe assistant, easy ease. And we'll go in here and we'll just quickly animate this curve a little bit. And then we'll copy this keyframe and we'll just animate this out really quickly. So get something like that and animates out. And then for the text, we'll just do a basic opacity fade in just for demo purposes. So 0 here. And we'll just bring it up here. This should be 0. Same thing, we will go ahead and paste that, copy and paste that. And we'll just go ahead and easy ease this as well, just like that. And again, this should be 0 and 0. So basic fade in, fade out. My lower third looks good. And now I want to save this as a template in Premiere. So I'll go ahead and go to Window and go to the Essential Graphics panel, which is right here. And as you can see, let's go ahead and set the master, which is the composition, to our lower thirds compositions. As you can see, now it's blank. And I'm going to name this Dojo Simple Thirds. And I'm going to go ahead and delete our footage here because we don't want that in the actual template itself. And so setting a poster frame means we're setting a thumbnail for our graphics or for our motion graphics template here. So I think this is a good style frame. So we'll hit set poster frame. So as you can see now, this is our thumbnail, pretty boring. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and click the solo supported properties. Now this button will pretty much solo all the properties that you can bring into the essential graphics panel right here. So as you can see, not everything is on here, but all the expression controls are on here. And this is basically all we need. So, but we can bring in source text, which we will need. So bring in the source text. And we can bring in opacity, but you can't bring in position and scale because those are array properties. And so I told you before that you have to link that into expression controls. We can bring in linear wipe stuff, very, very basic stuff as of right now. But we have all the controls we need in our control null. So we'll bring all that stuff in. So source text, we'll bring in the X, Y. And as you can see, the name doesn't retain. So we need to call this, we'll just call this edit text. And we'll call this X position. We'll call this Y position. And, we can edit the range values of the slider here. So this is kind of like a pseudo effect. Slider range from 0 to, let's just say 1,000, or maybe even, we'll just do 1,000 for now. But obviously you would play around with these max and min values to make the template or the sliders more reasonable here. What else? We're gonna bring in the padding amount. So click on the slider property, bring that in, call this padding. We'll bring in the font color, we'll bring in the background color, and I believe that is it, yes. So this would be the font color, and this would be the background color. And these are all the controls that we'll have within our Dojo simple thirds. So once we have everything in here, you can also add a little comment, which is kind of like some text in the control. So we'll say, I don't know, we can just call this lower thirds instructions. And this is for a 1080p composition. And we'll just bring this comment up here. So once we have all the controls in the essential graphics panel that we want, we can go ahead and export the motion graphics template. It says we need to save the project, so we'll hit yes. And you have two options here. You can either save it directly to the essential graphics, and this is kind of like a library attached to your Adobe Creative Cloud account, or you can save it locally, which is a MOGRT file extension, which you can share with other people, send it online through emails, Dropbox, whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and save it to my desktop here and hit OK. And just like that, you created your motion graphics template. So before I go into Premiere, I'm gonna go ahead and give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Squarespace is the #1 place to create an amazing website, whether it's for your online business, store, portfolio. They have tons of themes to choose from, fully customizable, so you can tweak the website to look the way you want it to look like. Very easy, very friendly, no coding required. They have amazing 24-hour support, awesome prices, and you can start your trial today absolutely free. Best of all, if you use the promo code DOJO at checkout, you can actually save 10% off your order. So check it out over at squarespace.com/dojo. Squarespace, the #1 place to create an awesome website. So once you export your motion graphics template within the Essential Graphics panel in After Effects, you can actually go into Premiere right here and go to Window and go to the Essential Graphics. And then go ahead and hit this little button right here to actually import your motion graphics template that you exported to your desktop. So I have the Dojo Simple Thirds right here just installed, and I'm gonna go ahead and click and drag it into my timeline like any other piece of footage. And just like that, you can see that we have our lower thirds right here playing, and it's actually fully loaded. So if I go ahead and click the graphics right here and go to the edit, you can see that we have all of our controls right here. So directed by John Appleseed, we can go filmed by Vincent Wynn, which it wasn't. And we can change the X and Y position like we controlled in After Effects here. And this is all live within Premiere, no After Effects tinkering necessary. And so this is a very, very handy way to basically rig up graphics for your editor and send the template to your editor so that they can actually make all the necessary tweaks and edits themselves instead of, going back and forth, making these small little tweaks in After Effects and re-exporting it, bringing it back. This way your editor can do everything live within Premiere, or yourself can do it in Premiere, and it saves you a lot of time for shows and, personal YouTube channels and stuff like that, bumpers and like, titles and intros. You can always customize text live with the Essential Graphics panel. And this is a game changer instead of going back and forth and using dynamic link. This is a huge game changer. And I'm really happy that this is now in the ecosystem. Like I said before, there are some advantages of doing this within Premiere. For example, you can create the responsive boxes a lot easier in Premiere because you don't have to use expressions. There's also a few features, I believe, in CC 2018 of Premiere that allows you to pretty much define an intro and ending point so that you can stretch out the middle portion of your animation, but still keep the intros and outros of your graphics the same so that you can kind of expand or shorten the graphic without destroying the intros and outro. This is, I believe, a new feature in 2018. So check that out. There's a lot of things that you can do in Premiere that you can't really do in After Effects. But in Premiere, the type tool and all that stuff, it's still kind of, not really that robust. I like to do all my title designs in After Effects. But if you create the graphics within Premiere itself, you can actually edit the fonts and change, the font weight and the font type and all that stuff, and the kerning and the tracking and all that stuff like that. So that's one benefit of doing it in Premiere. So that's pretty much it for this video tutorial, guys. There's a lot of things you can do. I recommend doing some research on this on your own time. There's a lot of things you can do with it. You can actually rig up really cool, complex stuff using Essential Graphics and After Effects. Like you can tweak like Element 3D stuff and tie certain particular things into the template or Trapcode Mirror. Like you can tweak things to slider controls and do a lot of cool stuff with advanced plugins and stuff like that. in Premiere. So it's a pretty cool idea to check out. But that's pretty much it for this video tutorial, guys. This is the essential graphics. This is pretty much how you do a quick little setup for your intros and lower thirds and stuff like that. So this is the essential graphics in Premiere starting CC 2017 spring and above. My name is Vincent Nguyen from the Creative Dojo, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.